My name is Clark Bell, and I'm music education coordinator for Florida Atlantic University Music Department. And today, I have a guest with me whose name is Guengel Strutt, who is currently a graduate student in ocean engineering at Florida Atlantic University. Guengel is a recorder player as well as an engineering student who happens to be doing his research in acoustics. He's studied at the École Nationale de Musique in Noiselle, France. And I suppose you tell us, Guengel, about your background and how you started in music.
Okay, I started playing the recorder at the age of 7 in a conservatory of music in my hometown. Now, in France, conservatory of music does not necessarily mean you want to become a professional player. You can start studying the recorder in a school which is sponsored by the city council, and for a minimum fee you can learn how to play the recorder like any other instrument. That's what I did for several years before I entered the Conservatory of Music of Noiselle, which is a national conservatory of music, and I eventually graduated 4 years ago from the early music department.
And then you began studying engineering? You went to engineering from that?
No, I managed to study music and engineering at the same time. I would leave school for one day and spend an entire day in the Conservatory of Music to play with ensembles, to have a private lesson with my teacher. I could study engineering and music at the same time.
Wonderful, wonderful. Suppose you show us some of the thing about the recorder. In fact, let's start with the alto, and let's go through the family and give us a little demonstration here, if you would, or presentation.
Okay, so this is the recorder, the basic recorder, which means it's the alto, the one which plays a low F when you close all the holes. This is a model from the Baroque era. Now, most of you probably know this kind of instrument and recall how it sounds in a classroom, and I know that because I had to go through the same thing when I was in secondary school. But as a professional instrument, it has a very different sound. So now we're going to listen to a piece from Henry Purcell, a chaconne, played by French recorder players Hugo Rennes and Jean-Pierre Nicolas, and you will be able to follow the score at the same time. So this was the chaconne from Henry Purcell, played by Hugo Rennes and Jean-Pierre Nicolas. You had actually two recorders that you could follow on the score, played on the alto recorder. Now, there's not only the alto recorder, which is the mid-range one, the most popular one, which sounds like this. But you have an entire family. So I took with me the soprano recorder, which is actually the one which is most widely played in schools all around the world. The soprano recorder, which is smaller, plays a fifth higher, but the fingerings are basically the same. Now there's even a smaller recorder, which is a sopranino, which plays an octave higher than the alto. Now there's even a smaller recorder, which is the Excellent, but it's not widely played because you really need small fingers to play it. Even this one is pretty difficult. Now, as you have smaller ones, you also have bigger ones. This is the tenor recorder, which plays an octave lower than the soprano. Hope you like that one. Okay, tenor recorder is probably the most difficult to play because you really need to have big hands to put your fingers on all the holes. Now,
might be interesting to show those two together, the tenor and the soprano. You notice they're exactly twice as tall, so maybe not exact, but it's close.
Yeah.
And that's what causes the higher octave.
Yeah, exactly.
Or lower octave.
Now, this one is the little bass. This is the largest recorder we have today, but as it is called a little bass, you can also find the big bass and the contrabass, but the other ones are pretty heavy to carry. Okay.
Now you notice that these are the same relationship. The alto has to the bass. It's twice the size. The bass is twice as large. So.
Now, something very interesting about the history of the recorder. What I haven't mentioned yet is that the recorders are very old instruments, and the model that you have seen already is usually the Baroque model, which has been developed mostly in the first part of the 18th century. Now, I brought with me my Renaissance recorder, which has a very different shape and a different sound.
You play that same piece on the other to see the comparison.
Now, the main difference is in the shape of the recorder. While the bore of the Baroque recorder is conic, which means that the diameter of the recorder is much smaller here than there, on the Renaissance recorder, the bore has a cylindrical shape, which means that, did I say conic for this one?
Yeah.
Okay, so this one has a cylindrical shape, which means that the diameter here and there is approximately the same, which gives a larger sound, less mellow, more spontaneous, with more power.
Well, in other words, you can compare the cornet and the trumpet. The trumpet is cylindrical, the cornet is conical.
Oh.
And just the same relationship, right?
Oh. Thank you. Okay, so great recorder makers like Denner, Stanisby made the recorder evolve into this model when the Baroque era was at its peak. But in reality, this is not an exact replica of Baroque models. This is much closer to what was made in the 18th century. This is a handcrafted recorder which was made by a craftsman in England, and it's entirely made by hand. It costs a lot of money, and of course it has a much better sound.
When you say a lot of money, you're talking about $100, $500, $1,000?
This is $1,000.
Ooh, that's a lot of money.
It's made by hand, takes 2 weeks. That's it.
Okay.
And the wood also is of an excellent quality. So, I love this recorder. What are the main differences with the replica manufactured recorder and the almost original copy from Baroque models? First of all, this model is slightly smaller, which means that it plays a little higher. Indeed, Baroque pitch was a little lower. This is A440 Hertz, and this is A415 Hertz. So that's one of the differences when you play early music. Usually you try to stick to the original tuning.
So if I played one, you played the other, you could do it even yourself, couldn't you?
Yes.
Play the same.
If I play a C in both of them, you can hear a half tone difference, though I'm really playing a C.
Yeah.
So that's why when I play in orchestras with other instruments, I have to use this kind of recorder instead of this one. So now we're going to listen to a Baroque sonata from Telemann, where I'm going to play this recorder with a harpsichord. And this recording was made at Florida Atlantic University.
As we watched the Telemon, I noticed an awful lot of tricky fingering things going on there and some blowing problems. Suppose you talk to us about how to blow and how to finger and how some techniques of the recorder.
Okay. I think there are three major components to the recorder technique that should be taken care of. The most obvious one is fingering and the way you hold the recorder. Now, though it might look impressive, I don't think this is the most important part, but I'll go through some basics. Now, when you hold a recorder, there are two common mistakes. The one is to arc the fingers on the recorder and be in a really stressed position, which means that you will eventually get cramps after half an hour of playing. And there's another mistake is to pull the hands below the recorder in this fashion, which probably would give some wrist injury after a while. To play the recorder, the most important thing to think of is to be totally relaxed everywhere, not to bite into the recorder, just put it between the lips. And the same thing for the arms. Just let the elbows relax gently close to the body. Now, apart from fingering, another important thing is tonguing. The way I produce the sound with my tongue. If I blow into the recorder, I make a little T sound. I pronounce the letter T into the recorder. If I didn't do that, I wouldn't have a sharp attack. I would have something like, which would not enable me to play as quickly as I do.
Now, T, you say T. I've been told that actually the D is a little better because it gives you a little softer attack.
Now, that's an advantage with the recorder. By using different consonants, you can produce different sounds and add to the variety of the playing. If I play with a D sound, the difference is that you're going to play more legato. The sound is going to be softer. I can play something like, and to compare with the T, I'll play something much harsher like. Now it really depends on what you want to play.
Gives you a sharper attack with a T.
Exactly. So that you can play staccato, legato, just by changing the type of the attack. Now, if you want to play even faster, you're not going to. You have a physical limit to the speed at which you can play ta 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 ta. So there's a trick on the recorder to play even faster is to use what is called double tonguing, which is the use of the sound ta a da with the sound ka a ga. So I can play taka 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 ta or daga 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 da, depending on how soft you want to play. So you can do by using double tonguing. And the same thing applies to triple tonguing. If you are in not a binary rhythm, but a ternary rhythm, you can play.
So actually, in your throat, in your throat, in your tongue, you're doing da 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 like that.
Yes, that's for triple tonguing.
Yeah.
Now these issues are actually very old ones. Even Baroque players were aware of the differences in tonguing and the kind of consonants you could associate with the attack of the note. I have here a recorder treatise from Hotteterre, which was published at the beginning of the 18th century. And I just pick up a page random. And what we can see is these little scores with the notes. And underneath, Hotteterre writes tu 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 or tu ru. That's the way they talked about the softer sound. They said ru, because in Old French, ru sounds a bit like du. Okay, that's another complicated issue. But tonguing was already a very important issue, and it was really an important part of the technique of the recorder player. I mean, the recorder player was expected to play on tonguing to give much more flavor to his music. Now, after fingering and tonguing, something which is very important and probably much more difficult to notice is the technique of blowing into the recorder. This is certainly the most difficult aspect of the recorder. And actually, if you pick up a recorder and play one note, you won't notice that you don't have an extraordinary technique. And actually, most recorder players won't even bother about that. But they will hear what kind of sound you make with the recorder. I'll try to imitate, a crispy sound, with not a nice flow of air, like in
kind of like mine.
Okay. If I take a deep breath and blow nicely into it, I'll have a mellower sound. And at that sound, I can modify the pressure of the air to give you more interesting aspects to my music, like the most common one would be vibrato. Or I can just simply move up and down sometimes for some special effect. Or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now how would you use these in a composition?
Okay. I think we're going to listen to a piece from Corelli. Corelli wrote variations on the famous theme of La Foglia. Many famous composers like Marin Marais and Corelli have written variations on La Foglia. Now, quickly, variations are modifications on a basic theme that is going to be played at the beginning of the piece. The basic theme is so what I'm doing here is using D attacks, very mellow, with a little bit of vibrato here and there, and I'm making it sound very soft. But there are some variations which play very quickly, and there I'll use a sharper attack, and no vibrato at all, like... So this is what we're going to hear in La Foglia from Corelli.
You know, when we talk to people about the recorder, most everybody associates the recorder with school band, pre-band training. And so it's sort of evolved through these different processes. Could you talk a little bit about the evolution of the recorder as a learning instrument, as well as some of the contemporary things that are being done?
Yes, well, there's a historical reason to that. At the end of the 18th century, when the piano and the modern flute were developed, the recorder started to disappear as a professional instrument. And throughout the 19th century, it was seldom used. When the early music movement started to go into the museums, go into the libraries and get some recorders and get some music for recorders, people started getting interested in the recorder. But it's only much later that it became the instrument that I know. That means an instrument taught into conservatories, like any other instrument. At that time, people also thought that the recorder could be used as a means to teach kids music, because they thought it's easy to get a sound from that instrument. You just have to go. If you take an oboe or a clarinet or a flute, first time you try, you're not going to get a sound, and that might upset the kids. So they thought about, why not use a recorder and make them play some tunes? Now, that was a good idea. First of all, they had to change the fingerings, because they were quite cumbersome. You had to use what are called forks, which kids cannot really play. So they changed the fingerings and made it go upwards nicely at that. They forget about the sharps and the flats. They really simplified the instrument so that everybody could learn it. Now, this has probably damaged the view people have of the recorder. And nowadays, especially in Australia, Japan, and in Europe, the recorder has its position, maybe less in the United States. But at the same time, though everybody could learn the recorder, there were still more and more professional recorder players. And after the Second World War, with all the contemporary music, boiling and starting investigating new domains of musical expression, people started writing new music for the recorder. And as they wrote new music, they invented new techniques. So I'd like to go through a couple of these interesting techniques that take advantage of the intrinsic qualities of the instrument. So we went through tonguing, for example. There was single tonguing, double tonguing, and a couple of consonants. But you can go through crazy stuff like flutter tonguing, which is producing a sound by making the tongue flutter, which is one of the techniques widely used. Now, all the other techniques I want to talk about, like the throat vibrato, they might sound strange, but they have actually been used many times for famous pieces. The throat vibrato is interesting because the vibrato I did before, which is the one you are expected to use when you play Baroque music, is actually a technique that was widely used before, let's say, the 1970s for recorder playing. It was some sort of mistake. So if you hear somebody play the recorder by using a constant throat vibrato, that means there's a little, I would say that is a mistake. You cannot play the recorder all the time by making throat vibrato. The basic sound of the recorder is just blowing nicely into it. Other techniques should be seen as an ornament, okay? And throat vibrato is only a contemporary ornament. What do we have? Okay, we have the finger vibrato. I'll make the sound go up and down by putting my finger onto another hole on the recorder. Or whatever. We have the labium vibrato. We have the glissando. See, glissando is also a technique that is widely used on other instruments, like the violin and the trumpet.
You mean the trombone?
The trombone.
Right.
I'm sorry. On the recorder, it's a little bit more difficult to do, but it's also widely used, and it's very fancy ornament.
It's kind of hard to go the whole range of the instrument.
That's why it's fancy. It's not always easy to do it. What else do we have? Okay, now we're getting into really
bizarre
stuff. You have the white noise. You can make some percussive sounds, like and play rhythms like that. You have the random finger playing. I've seen that in many pieces from different composers, from different times, different continents, and there's some standard notation for that.
Random fingering.
That's right. Introduction of random events in music, which is very interesting. And also, close to that, we have the very hard tonguing, sputato. That, I mean, I actually use in many different types of music, but it's also used in contemporary music, sputato.
Very percussive.
That's right. Just have you have the flavor of the notes, but you don't really hear the sound. It's a lot of
rushing air.
Yeah. That's why it's percussive, because it's not just the sound itself, but also the noise around it. Then there are the vocal effects, also very widely used and can be quite funny, like. Okay, that wasn't very contemporary, but I like it. And then you get into really crazy stuff. I think one of the most crazy stuff I've ever seen is playing two recorders at the same time. So this is a famous piece from the Japanese composer Maki Ishii called Black Intention, a very famous piece. I mean, really gives some momentum to the movement of contemporary recorder playing. So it sounds like this.
And that's it, huh?
Yeah.
Very short.
No, it's a long piece, and very different techniques are in there. But I think it was a good example to show two recorders at the same time.
You were showing me before about taking the mouthpiece off and using it just like a trumpet.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of things, playing
show
with.
that one.
Okay, in one piece, we were a concert of 4 recorders, and it's plainly written on the score. We have to go and play some music like that, as if it were a trumpet.
With the fingers moving.
Oh, with the fingers moving. I mean, everything is possible. Okay, and to show that, we're going to listen to a piece I played a couple of years ago with a recorder player friend of mine from France, Pascal Duvaux, and I played that in a church next to Noisiel. And while you're going to listen to that piece, which doesn't use very advanced techniques, but which goes very fast and a lot of sputato into it, at the same time you're going to see some scores, some actual scores for recorders, and you'll see some advanced notation about how to play this and that, and sometimes you'll see some ordinary scores and ordinary notes with some things written on them, and sometimes you'll see some really crazy stuff, and you'll see the recorder associated with a tape. You'll see some fancy pictures which are actually scores you have to follow. I mean, everything you're going to see is actually music written for the recorder during the 20th century.
We have heard a wide variety of music today, and it just seems to me a question was what kind of a recorder should I buy if I want to start to learn this instrument? Do you have any suggestions about what a person would do in purchasing an instrument?
Okay, when you want to start the recorder and you're not sure you're going to keep it, the big advantage with the recorder is that they make a lot of plastic ones for a very reasonable price. There are many large manufacturers like Yamaha, Xenon, Olos, which make good plastic recorders for maybe $20, $30. In the US, you usually find them for $50 or $60. But it's still very reasonable compared to the most expensive wooden recorders and compared to other instruments.
Right. So you would recommend plastic before you got a wooden one, because you could get into some real trouble buying a wooden instrument without knowing.
Exactly, and wooden recorders have a problem when they age. They tend to be damaged by moisture. So even when you're a professional recorder player, you tend to have a bunch of plastic ones to practice.
Yeah, I noticed that you came over to the lab one day and brought some oil and oiled all our wooden recorders. And
yes, and wood is a precious material and has to be taken care of.
Well, we certainly want to thank you, Guengel, for sharing all of your enthusiasm for the recorder and your talent. And also, if you are interested in more information about the recorder, we recommend that you get on the internet and find the recorder homepage. You will find links to just about everything that any question you might have, and probably more than you want to know about the recorder. And it's been a great opportunity to share the recorder with you. In fact, there are recordings available that you might find in record stores. Some of these are probably on CD now because of the conversion over from vinyl. But we have some pictures of some of the record jackets, so you know that the recorder is really a serious instrument. It's not a toy, and I hope that this video today has given you some background and some understanding of this whole question. So thank you again, Guengel, for playing for us, and thank you very much for watching.